Before we dive into today's story, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us till the very end. And if this story moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Now, let's begin. Taylor Morgan sat at the window seat of the first-class cabin, the hum of the plane steady beneath her feet. 3 years ago, she had walked away from her family without so much as a backward glance. No calls, no birthdays, no holidays. She told herself it was because she needed space, but really it was because she was tired of being invisible. Distance will hurt less, she had whispered to her reflection the night she left their small Ohio town. For a while it did. But tonight, as the Chicago skyline faded beneath the clouds, she felt her stomach twist. She was going back. Not because she missed them, at least that's what she told herself, but because she wanted them to see who she had become. A marketing director at 32, running national campaigns, pulling 6 figures. Surely that counted for something. Surely this time, her seat at the table would be earned. Louise, her best friend, had warned her on the phone the night before. Success doesn't change the scoreboard in families like yours, Louise said gently. If they didn't see you before, a promotion isn't going to make them look. Taylor forced a laugh. They'll have to respect me now. But when the flight attendant asked if she wanted champagne, she shook her head and turned to the window, doubt pressing heavy against her ribs. The driveway felt smaller than she remembered, the house older, the paint peeling at the edges. Taylor parked her rented black BMW, took a deep breath, and grabbed the neatly wrapped gifts from the trunk. She had gone all out: an iPad for her mother, a gaming console for Sandra's kids, a spa package for Beverly, a brand new air fryer for Ronald and his wife, Peggy. Not to show off, she told herself, but to show she cared. The door opened before she could knock. Martha Morgan, her mother, stood there with the same sharp gray eyes that had haunted Taylor's childhood. "You look professional," Martha said, as though it was a compliment and an accusation all at once. "Good to see you too, Mom," Taylor replied, hugging her. Sandra appeared next, her hair pinned back, 3 kids tumbling around her legs like puppies. "Kids, say hi to Aunt Taylor," Sandra called, barely glancing up from her phone. The greetings were mumbled, distracted, before they scattered off again. Beverly arrived still in scrubs, exhausted from another double shift. She smiled faintly before her eyes flicked to the keys in Taylor's hand. "First-class flight, huh?" she said. "Aren't you fancy now?" Taylor's jaw tightened, but she only smiled. Ronald, at least, seemed genuinely happy to see her. "Hey, Peg, this is my baby sister, the one who made it out of Ohio." He grinned with pride, and for a brief, foolish moment Taylor's chest eased. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. The gifts went over like stones dropped in water. Sandra raised an eyebrow. "Taylor, this is too much." Beverly muttered something about not having time for a spa day. Mom just stared at the iPad as if Taylor had handed her a bomb. Only Ronald's thanks felt sincere. As Beverly set the table, Taylor noticed something that made her stomach clench. 7 chairs, 8 people. "Hey, you missed a place," Taylor said lightly. Beverly barely glanced up. "Oh, the kids are in the living room. Just grab the kitchen stool." The same stool Taylor had used when she was 8, barely tall enough to see over the table. For a moment, she stood frozen. Was it careless or deliberate? Either way, the message landed. "Sure," Taylor said tightly. "The stool is fine." When everyone settled, she perched on the small wooden seat, just a little lower, just a little outside the circle. Conversation flowed easily. Sandra's PDA updates, Beverly's heroic patient story, Ronald's latest project. Martha nodded and smiled, her pride shining like a spotlight on everyone except Taylor. She waited for someone to ask about her, about Chicago, about anything, but no one did. She swallowed hard. She had spent thousands of dollars, crossed hundreds of miles, just to sit lower than everyone else. When the lull came, Taylor cleared her throat. I have news, she said. The room went quiet, polite, expectant. My team just wrapped a campaign that brought over 200 new manufacturing jobs to Ohio and Michigan. A brief pause. That's nice, Beverly said, her tone already distracted. Martha added, money isn't everything. Sandra nodded without looking up from her phone. Some people forget what matters. Taylor's knuckles whitened under the table. This isn't about money, she said quietly. It's about impact. Families will have food on their tables because of this work. Sandra's smile was thin. There's a difference between caring about people and caring about profit. Taylor felt something crack deep inside her chest. She looked at her mother. Since we're talking about caring, maybe it's time to mention how I've been paying for this seat all along. Chairs scraped against the floor as every head turned. What are you talking about? Martha asked, her voice sharp. The electric bill, the internet, groceries, Taylor said. And the rent. Beverly frowned. Rent? Mom owns this house. Taylor shook her head. Not for 2 years. When the surgery bills came, she had to sell it and rent it back. When she fell behind, she called me. Silence fell like a stone. Sandra turned to their mother. Is that true? Martha stared at the table, her face tight. It wasn't supposed to be permanent, she muttered. Taylor pressed on. I didn't do it to buy favor. I did it to keep the lights on. Ronald's voice was small. Wait, my car insurance, was that you? Taylor nodded. $150 every month, plus $1,200 rent, $300 utilities, for 100 groceries. Sandra went pale. That's more than any of us could pay. This is why I left, Taylor said quietly. I had to build something strong enough to hold all of you. Martha's head snapped up, her eyes bright with something between anger and shame. How dare you bring this up at dinner, she said coldly. We are not a charity case. Taylor laughed once, bitter and sharp. You're not fine, Mom. You called me crying. I asked my daughter for help, not a banker, Martha hissed. And you got both, Taylor shot back. The room went still. A cartoon giggled from the living room, the only sound in the house. Then Martha stood, palms flat on the table. You think money buys love? Buys respect? You don't deserve a seat at this table. Taylor stood slowly, the stool scraping loud against the tile. Then maybe it's time I stop paying for it. Taylor reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and scrolled to a familiar contact. Martha's chin lifted sharply. Taylor, don't you dare make a scene. Taylor's voice was calm, almost too calm. This isn't a scene. This is a boundary. The call connected. Banking services. How may I help you? A polite voice answered. Hi, this is Taylor Morgan, she said, her eyes still locked on her mother. I need to cancel several automatic payments. Sandra shoved her chair back. Taylor, stop. We can talk about this. We've been talking for years, Taylor said, her thumb hovering over the speaker button. You just weren't listening. Which payments? The rep asked. Taylor's throat tightened, but her voice stayed steady. Rent to Morgan Property Management. Effective today. Martha's knuckles whitened around the edge of the table. You can't do this, she said, her voice low and shaking. You told me you didn't need my money, Taylor said. Prove it. Next, Taylor said into the phone. Electric bill to Ohio Edison, $300. Internet, $80. Grocery allowance to Martha Morgan, $400. Cancel them all. Beverly stood, her eyes wide. Taylor, that's enough. Mom's been through hell. Don't make it worse. Taylor stepped back when Beverly reached for the phone. Don't, she warned. You wanted honesty. This is honesty. Ronald's voice was barely above a whisper. My insurance, $150. Taylor looked at him for a long moment, then spoke into the phone. Cancel that too. The cartoon in the living room played on, a bright, cheerful soundtrack to the silence that followed. Sandra's voice was sharp now. "This is cruel, Taylor." Taylor's chest rose and fell, her voice quiet but firm. "No, sitting on a stool like a child was cruel. Pretending my work didn't matter was cruel. This," she gestured to the phone, "this is Clarity." The rep came back on the line. "All payments have been canceled, Ms. Morgan. Confirmation numbers will be sent shortly." "Thank you," Taylor said, ending the call. She slipped the phone back into her purse and looked around the table. No more checks. No more quiet deposits. No more buying my way into a chair you never planned to set. Martha stood so quickly her chair fell backward. "You're punishing us because your feelings got hurt." Taylor's laugh was hollow. "My feelings? I kept this house warm. I kept the fridge full. I kept Ronald on the road." Peggy, Ronald's wife, spoke up for the first time. "What do we do now?" Taylor's voice softened, but it was steel under silk. "You do what I did in Chicago. You make a plan. You share the load. You stop pretending everything's fine when it's falling apart." "I'm going to my hotel," Taylor said, picking up her coat. "Tomorrow I fly back to Chicago." Beverly wiped at her eyes. "Taylor, wait." Taylor turned in the doorway. "I waited 3 years," she said softly. "I'm done waiting." She paused, her gaze sweeping the table. 7 chairs and a stool. Her gifts piled awkwardly on the counter. For a moment, she almost faltered. Then she said quietly, "For what it's worth, I never wanted to be your banker. I just wanted to be your daughter." And with that, she left. The house stayed frozen long after the door shut. Sandra gathered the kids, Beverly cleared the plates in silence, and Ronald sat with his hands clasped, staring at the empty stool. Martha stood unmoving by the table, her shoulders squared, her face unreadable. But her eyes were wet. 2 days later, Taylor sat in her Chicago apartment, staring at the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows, when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the caller ID made her heart jolt. "Mom," she said cautiously. Martha's voice was softer than Taylor had ever heard it. "I went to the bank today," she whispered. "I saw the numbers. I didn't know, Taylor. I didn't know how much you were carrying for us." Taylor said nothing, letting the silence fill the space where excuses used to live. "We tried splitting the bills," Martha continued. "But even with everyone pitching in, it's tight. I was angry at the wrong thing, proud of the wrong things." Taylor closed her eyes, a knot loosening in her chest. "Do you know what it felt like," she said quietly, "to sit on that stool like I was 8 again, after building a life strong enough to keep you afloat?" For a long moment, Martha didn't answer. Then, finally, her voice broke. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not for taking the money, but for making you earn love that should have been yours without question." Taylor swallowed hard, tears stinging her eyes. "If we start over," she said slowly, "it has to be honest. No secrets, no quiet payments, no pretending things are fine." Martha took a shaky breath. "Then let's start there." A week later, Taylor sat in front of her laptop for a family call. Cameras were on. Bills were on the table. Sandra admitted her jealousy. Beverly confessed she dismissed Taylor's career to justify staying close to home. Ronald promised to cover his insurance and contribute every month. Together, they made a plan, clear, fair, shared. For the first time, Taylor felt the knot in her chest begin to ease. 6 months later, Taylor drove down the familiar road again, the spring sun spilling over the fields. This time she didn't feel dread. The house still looked small, but it no longer looked like a trap. Inside, the table was set with 8 chairs, real chairs. No stool. Sandra's kids ran to greet her, and even Beverly smiled warmly. Ronald handed her a beer and said, "Your seat's waiting." When Martha appeared from the kitchen, she hesitated only a moment before gesturing to the chair at the far end. "It's yours," she said, "if you want it." Taylor sat down, level with everyone, her feet flat on the floor, her head held high. No questions about her salary, no veiled comments about being too far away. Instead, they asked about her life, her plans. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Later that night, as Taylor stood on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Martha joined her. For a moment, they were quiet. Then Martha said, "You were right. Respect isn't something we give because of money. It's something we should have given because you are ours." Taylor turned to her mother, her voice steady. "Family isn't a prize you buy or a debt you collect. It's a table you choose, and I won't crawl under it again." Martha nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. "Then stay at the table," she said softly. Taylor smiled, a small, hard-won smile. "Only if we're all sitting level." Inside, laughter rang from the kitchen. For the first time, Taylor didn't feel like an outsider looking in. She felt like she belonged, because this time she had chosen the seat herself. That night, Taylor lay awake in the guest room that used to be hers, staring at the familiar ceiling. The posters were gone, the walls repainted, but the faint creak of the floorboards and the distant hum of the old fridge were the same. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she had to hold her breath in this house. She thought about the girl she used to be, sitting on that same stool, trying to make herself small so she wouldn't take up too much space. That girl had built walls, worked herself to exhaustion, chased achievements like oxygen, only to return and sit at the same table, uninvited. Taylor rolled over and whispered to the dark, "Not anymore." It wasn't forgiveness that let her sleep that night. It was the quiet, steady certainty that she would never again buy her way into love. The next morning, she came downstairs to find Martha already awake, sipping coffee at the table. The air was heavy with something unspoken. "I was thinking about the stool," Martha said finally. Taylor raised an eyebrow. "What about it?" "It wasn't an accident," Martha admitted. "I told Beverly to leave it out. I thought it would remind you of where you came from. Keep you grounded." Taylor's chest tightened, anger flaring, but she stayed still. "All it did," she said slowly, "was remind me of how far I had to climb to earn this seat." Martha's lips trembled. "I was wrong," she said. "You shouldn't have had to prove anything to sit with us." Taylor nodded once. "You can't unbreak what that did," she said softly. "But you can stop asking me to shrink to fit." For a long moment, Martha just stared at her coffee, then nodded. "I can do that." By noon, the kitchen was full of noise. Sandra's kids laughing, Beverly teasing Ronald about his cooking, the smell of cinnamon rolls in the oven. Taylor leaned against the counter, watching it all. For once, she didn't feel like an observer. When Ronald caught her eye, he grinned. "Feels different, doesn't it?" Taylor smiled faintly. "Yeah, it does." Sandra approached, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "I owe you an apology," she said, her voice awkward but sincere. "I thought your success made you selfish. I didn't see that you were carrying us. I didn't see you at all." Taylor blinked at her, then nodded. "Thank you for saying that." Sandra hesitated before adding, "The kids keep asking when you'll visit again. Maybe don't make it 3 years next time." Taylor laughed softly. "I'll try not to." That evening, before heading back to Chicago, Taylor stood once more at the table, this time with her hands flat against the wood, level with everyone else. "Before I go," she said, "I want to be clear. I'll help when I can, but I won't carry it all again. If I ever sit on a stool here, it will be because I choose it, not because you hand it to me." Martha nodded, tears in her eyes. "You have a seat here, Taylor. No stools. Not anymore." Taylor smiled, a quiet, certain smile, and slipped on her coat. As she stepped outside, the evening air was cool, the horizon painted gold and pink. The house behind her didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like a choice. She slid into her car, started the engine, and drove away with a rare, startling peace that comes from knowing you are no longer asking to belong. This time, she had claimed her place. Like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this, and let us know where you are watching from under the comment section.